A reading from the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Do you have a smartphone? Would you like to follow today's message? Get the YouVersion Bible app. Search for a live event, enter your zip code. You can follow the notes, read deeper into the text, and watch all the video. If you would like to watch the message again or share the message with someone else, go to Crossroads website, click follow us on YouTube. There you can watch today's message or any of our previous videos. Remember, at Crossroads Church, we have an app for that.
My name is Jeremiah. I am the pastor at Uptown Church. Welcome to Crossroads Church today. You know, I have no idea how many times I need to practice that, out of all things, to say good morning, because we have an evening service, and welcome to Crossroads Church. At Uptown Church, I have said already, welcome to Crossroads Church, and good morning in the same sentence. It didn't work. You ever heard of the store Hobby Lobby? It's a big store. Do you know how much money they make a year? $3.7 billion. So there's this guy who started it. His name's David Green. What you may or may not know about David Green is that he is an avid collector of ancient manuscripts. Which is crazy, because first you're like, well, should he have those? How can these be a private thing? Well, somehow he's acquiring them. If you want to learn more about the way things are acquired, this is not a commercial for The Atlantic, but you should really read The Atlantic. There's an article here in this last month's issue. And he's going to take his dollars and he's going to make a museum about the Bible. I don't know if you've heard about this. Well, he's got the money. What else do you need for the museum? You need all the stuff that goes in the museum. Well, he's buying it somehow. And here's what this is what he wants people to know about the Bible. It's the Bible Museum. I think that's what it's called. He says, they need to know, he said, that this book speaks to every area of life and it has advice. It advises on how a good government should be. Our founding fathers unabashedly looked to the Bible in building this nation. So why wouldn't it be right for our legislators to know our history of our government? And some of you in here are like, yeah, go get them. And some of you are like, yuck. I'm not going to tell you where I am, and it's okay for you to be wherever you are. But what's crazy, and the reason I bring this up, is the amount of money and attention that this book, the Bible, is going to get because of this museum. To the point that it will be so big that people will think that this tells the story of the Bible. There's only one. He's got it because he's got artifacts and money, and you can go there and pay to get in. And so the risk then is that this guy's got it. We got to go get the one. Well, here's the deal. It says it right here. Think, what do I believe? And it's got a person reading with their finger like I do, so you don't get lost. This is what you're about to start, is this study of the Bible, of this book, that Green has all of it, apparently. And you get to decide, is this a story you're willing to carry on with you? And what does it mean to you? Before we start that, though, I want to show you a video clip from the movie Noah. And if for no other reason, you get to hear Russell Crowe speak, which is awesome. I wish my voice did that, and I wish my beard did that, and I wish everything about it. Anyway, I wish I was Russell Crowe. So this is the scripture reading according to Hollywood and Russell Crowe.
Let me tell you a story. The first story my father told me and the first story that I told each of you. In the beginning, there was nothing. Nothing but the silence of an infinite darkness. But the breath of the Creator fluttered against the face of the void, whispering, "Let there be light." And light was. And it was good. The first day. And then the formless light began to take on substance and shape. The second day. And our world was born. Our beautiful, fragile home. And a great warming light nurtured its days. And a lesser light ruled the nights. And there was evening and morning. Another day. And the waters of the world gathered together. And in their midst emerged dry land. Another day passed. And the ground put forth the growing things, a thick blanket of green stretching across all creation. And the waters, too, teemed with life. Great creatures of the deep that are no more. Vast multitudes of fish, some of which may still swim beneath these seas. And soon, the sky was streaming with birds. And there was evening, and there was morning, a fifth day. Now the whole world was full of living beings. Everything that creeps, everything that crawls, and every beast that walks upon the ground. And it was good. It was all good. There was light and air and water and soil, all clean and unspoiled. There were plants and fish and fowl and beast, each after their own kind, all part of the greater whole, all in their place, and all was in balance. It was paradise, the jewel in the Creator's palm. And the Creator made man, and by his side woman, father and mother of us all. He gave them a choice. Follow the temptation of darkness, or hold on to the blessing of light. But they ate from the forbidden fruit. Their innocence was extinguished. And so for the 10 generations since Adam's sin has walked within us. Brother against brother. Nation against nation. Man against creation. We murdered each other. We broke the world. We did this. Man did this. Everything that was beautiful, everything that was good, we shattered. Now, it begins again.
To see if the monkey was going to turn into a person. I was. What an awesome depiction of that story, though. I don't think I've ever seen one done quite so well. Interstellar, The Martian, name another space movie. I'm not going to count the one with Sandra Bullock and George Clooney. That's not a good movie. What was that one? Gravity. Yuck. That wasn't a good movie. That's so fake. But our world is really focused on what is out there. And we made some big strides to find it. And this video does it. It pulls it all together. It tells the story really well. But it's a pretty crazy story, isn't it? It's a really crazy story. Now, in our songs today, we sang these words, Jesus, you'll never leave me? Or something like that. You've never left me. You'll always be here. We sing this a lot. When you sing it, do you mean it? Like, does it own a part of you to say, Jesus, I need you. You've never left me. Well, if it doesn't, that's okay. It's okay to not to sing that and go, well, I don't know. Maybe Jesus has. Maybe Jesus hasn't. And that's the reason we start with this story. It's the reason you spend a whole year reading from the beginning of the Bible to the end. You've done it here before, and it's going to be new every single time. And what's great is that you get a chance, whether you say, Jesus, you've never left me, and you're like, yep, that is a proclamation from my mouth. I'm telling everyone Jesus has never left me. Or if it's a petition and you're saying, Jesus, just don't ever leave me. I think you might. I don't know if you will. You have before. Maybe you haven't before. I don't know. This story's for you either way. This crazy story. Now, it is a crazy story, right? You've probably heard it before. You've already got a couple instances in your life. You just see a naked man and a woman in a garden. You think, oh, that's the Bible, right? Like, it just happens. You see fruit with a heartbeat, and you're like, yep, must be the devil. This story is crazy, and I invite you to do this. And I said this at the last service. If you go to a movie, like the movie Inside Out, you know that's not real, right? That's not happening in your head. You don't have like 4 people things just moving little orbs around in your brain. But you sit in the chair with your popcorn in your giant soda, and you go, for an hour, 2, I'm going to say yes to this story. I'm going to accept that maybe this is, maybe there's joy and sadness running around and anger running around in my head. So if you're here going, yay, Jesus, or if you're here going like, no, I don't know about that, Jesus, will you please join us for the story then? This story that has glowing people, that has snakes that are coming out of snakes, it has fruit with a heartbeat, and it has Russell Crowe. Because it's a story about rescue, about redemption, about hope, and about this today is the overall point, that it speaks worth over us. That you're worth it. That's what this story is about. All the stuff you've heard, all God is saying to you among everything else through all the story. Let's rewind from Jesus' birth back to the beginning to when this happens. In the beginning, God is saying, you're worth it. You're worth it. You're always going to be worth it. That's the story today. It's one about potential. Now, let's talk about it like this. In the Western world, that's us, America. Yeah. So, America, in the Western world, we've always thought it's been common for us to think theologically about God like this, that at the beginning of time, when man and woman were there, we were created complete. Everything was complete. Everything was so good. It's the way it ought to be forever and ever. Amen. There we are. It's good. You've heard this story. And then like the story that Noah, Russell Crowe, shows us, there's an offense. And it starts in the story with Eve talking to a serpent, which then causes Adam in some way or form, who knows who did it first, take the fruit, take a bite, and we fall. That's the story. But we were complete, and we went from really perfect, the best that it ever could be, to so broken we could never do good again. Sorry, Jesus comes to make you do good again, to allow you to do good again because you never could. That's here. That's the Western world. Are you familiar with that one? You've heard that one. I'm going to offer another one today. And if it makes you mad, you can take it up with Paul next week, because I won't be here. It's this Eastern understanding of this story. It's the Eastern understanding of what does it mean to be a human. And the way I'm describing it is as a seed. Now, a seed is not complete It is not whole. It is not perfect, but it is a seed. And it has immense potential to grow into a giant tree, or in my case, dandelions. That's all I can grow. And it's a story of potential. This seed, this person, not created complete, but created and there, and with the potential to grow into something enormous, something with deep roots that can weather every storm, any storm, financial, death, marriage, you name it. This tree can withstand that. But it starts as a seed. And so I'm going to offer you this one, and you can read about this all over the internet, way better than I've said it. You can read about this. This story here is the one that I want to use as a launching point to say, you're worth it. Because here, in this version, God is saying, you're worth it, and I want you to know you're worth it. And I want you to tell other people you're worth it. And over here, the church for a long time, and it works. It worked for me. I grew up in a Lutheran church. My gosh, the Lutheran church lives over here with we could never do anything good ever. Sorry, you just can't. Jesus comes, now you can do everything, but make sure you say that Jesus allowed you to do it. So just you've never done anything good, and it leads you to this place where you feel like you have no worth. You were never a seed. You were just broken, and then just boom, night, day, you're different. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think, given that people are just walking away from the story, maybe this is a new way to bring people into this story about God and Jesus and the Bible and this redemption and making things new by saying, acknowledging, things are bad. Things are bad. You don't say things are all good over here. You say things have a lot of potential over here. They have a lot of potential, and we say, you're worth it. Let me show you how much you're worth it. And that is what I will say, fast forward to, 7 weeks from now when you talk about Jesus. That's what Jesus comes to tell us. This story about God, it starts here in the beginning, and it starts with God in the garden, and then God will move out. And he'll talk to Moses in a bush. Have you heard that story? A burning bush. The bush is burning in the middle of the fields or the desert or whatever it might be. And Moses talks to it. That's crazy. Seriously, the story is really weird. But you're here at the movie, so you have to listen. The bush talks to Moses and says, hey, take your shoes off. This is holy ground. And Moses is like, there's nothing here. There's no high places. No one's worshiping here. It's just me in a bush, and I'm talking to it. So this is not holy ground. And God says, where I am is holy ground. Take your shoes off. This is a paraphrase. And he does, and he takes his shoes off, and then he talks, and he's like, hey, you are going to go tell people, you're going to get some people, you're going to say to people, God is with you. And Moses is like, no. All right, I'll do it. And what happens then is Moses eventually, all these people start following Moses, and because he rescues them, right? And he leads them out of slavery, and they come to this mountain, and now God resides on the mountain. And God says, I am with you. But Moses has to run up and down all day telling people, remember, God is with us. God, they don't really believe you. Seriously, he just told me again, right? And they just go back and forth. And so God moves from the garden to a burning bush to this mountain. And then eventually people somehow corral God, kind of like Ghostbusters when you throw the thing out and it gets all the ghosts in the room. They get God into this ark. And God goes with them to the point that it's a crazy story. If you touch the ark, you die. Wow, that's a crazy story. So they carry God around for a while, and eventually they settle in a land where God says, this is your land. I am with you. Here's your land. And so they build God a house, and God lives in the house. It's the temple, the first temple. Things go sour. A bunch of empires come from here. The Assyrians come and conquer a little bit. The Babylonians come, they conquer a little bit. And then they're left without the temple. God's house is gone. Where is God? Where is God? If God said God was with us in the garden, and then God shows up in a bush, and then he's on the mountain, and then he's in the ark, and then and now where is he? Because the house is gone, so now what do we do? And the message of potential and worth starts kind of fade away for them. Well, who are we if we don't have the temple? Who are we if we don't have the God who said, I am your God and you are my people and I love you? Who are we if we don't have that? And so things get a little weird. But then the Persian Empire comes and they give them back the land and they go, we should build another temple. And they do. They build another temple. Jesus shows up. And Jesus says to a woman at a well, he says, there'll be a time when you neither worship God here in Samaria or at that temple. And now we're like, oh, where is God? Where is God? He said in the beginning he's going to be with us, and then he was in the bush, and then he was on the mountain, and then he was on the ark, and then he was in the temple. And then we lost him for a little bit. Then we went to the temple, and then the baby in the trough that everybody traveled from forever to come see, just told me that there'll be a time when we don't worship anywhere because where is God? And this is the best part, is Jesus says, well, God's going to reside in you. God will be in your hearts, and you will worship wherever you go, ever you go. And we return back to the burning bush where it's like, every ground is holy ground. So take your shoes off. Don't take your shoes off. The story, the through line, the thread that goes through everything is this. God is saying, I am with you. I am with you. You're like, okay, great. That's great, Jeremiah. But it has to have a reason why. Why is God telling you I am with you? And I think it's because of this, because God is saying, because you're worth it. You are absolutely worth every single hardship or difficult thing that God in the story, whether you believe it or not, still there, you are worth it. I am with you because you're worth it. I sort of lead. I drink coffee at this Bible study at 6 a.m., which is not a morning. That's not for me, but somehow I get there. And there's only a few of us in the Bible study, and we're not really good at, like, we say we're going to read the text, and then we show up, and we've read it, but then we don't really talk about it because we haven't seen each other for a month. And so we did this thing, and this question has kind of been ringing through my church, Uptown Church, my personal conversations, and now for you today. We just asked this question. But in order to answer this question, and I want you to think about the answer you have for it, you have to answer it in a tweet. Do you know what a tweet is? 144 characters. That's all you get. You can't go on and on in a tweet. If you do, you have to make a new tweet. And no one wants to read your second tweet. Definitely not your third tweet. You can get clever and put 1-3 and then have a 2-3 and a 3-3. No one's still. It doesn't matter. You have 144 characters to answer this question. And I asked these guys at the Bible study. I said, how do you know God is real? How do you know? Now, you have to answer it short, and you have to answer it in a compelling way. Because if you're not compelled by your answer, why would anyone else be? And if you're not compelled by it, why would you tell anybody else in the first place? So my friend over here who's been to church, I grew up with him in the church, and he's a really faithful man, but he was a little taken back by this question. How do you know God is real? And there's something about having to say what you believe out loud. You think it a lot, all the time, but when you have to say it out loud and put words to it, that's when you start to figure out if you know how to talk, one. And two, if you actually believe what you're saying. There are many times I've said things, I'm like, oh, nope, I don't know why that came out of my mouth. So my friend here, he's struggling with that, and he says, no, it's the Holy Spirit, and Jesus is, I know because Jesus lives in, and he's trying to say all these things that are like right on. And he's struggling through it, and it's fine. And then my other friend over here who grew up in the Catholic Church, ran away forever. He's the oldest of the bunch. He has a kid who's going to graduate soon. And he says he's there for his kid, but we know he's there for himself too. Otherwise, he wouldn't keep coming at 6 a.m. And I say, how do you know God is real? And he goes, I can feel it in my bones. It's like, that's a really good tweet. That's less than 144 characters for sure. You can put a hashtag on that too if you wanted. I can feel it in my bones, and my friend is over here going, and he's trying really hard. He's trying to say the same thing. I can feel it in my bones. And he's like, and what I'm asking you today is, how do you know God is real? How do you know? It's halfway rhetorical. I really don't want to talk about it the rest of the time because I don't have that much time, but I do want you to think about it. And maybe that's what you do this week as you start this new series, Think, What Do I Believe? Is you think about this question: how do you know God is real? And build from what you already know. Build from what you already know. You can go to the Bible museum that Hobby Lobby makes and look at all the stuff and all the text and look at old things that you can't read, but you'll be like, wow, that's really cool. And you'll go, but that's not going to convince you. You have to feel it in your bones. That's what the church is built on, is feeling it in your bones. That's what Crossroads Church was built on. Have you seen pictures of this place before this happened? There's nothing here. It's a field. Someone felt it in their bones. A few people felt it in their bones. They said, we should do something about it. We feel it. We're so compelled by it that we want to tell everyone. We want to tell everyone that you're worth it. That's the point. So what is the church then? If it can start with this conviction that you feel in your bones, what is it? Is it a building? Is it blue chairs? Is it pews? Is it making sandwiches? Is it shoveling the snow in the parking lot? Is it singing? Is it preaching? What is it? I want to read a letter from a guy named Kurt Cobain. Whether you like Nirvana or not is not the point. He was the lead singer for Nirvana, and in 1994, Kurt took his own life in April. The reason I bring this up is because we just got done talking about joy in Christmas, right? You lit a candle on the Advent wreath, signifying joy, the joy of life. And I want you to think about joy, or the lack thereof, as I read to you a letter that Kurt wrote to his wife. To Boda. All the warnings from the Punk Rock 101 courses over the years, since my first introduction to the, shall we say, ethics involved with independence and the embracement of your community has proven to be very true. I haven't felt the excitement of listening to as well as creating music along with reading and writing for too many years now. It's a bad thing for the guy, lead singer of a huge band. I feel guilty beyond words about these things. For example, when we're backstage and the lights go out and the maniac roar of the crowd begins, it doesn't affect me the way which it did for Freddie Mercury, who seemed to relish in the love and adoration from the crowd, which is something I totally admire and envy. The fact is, I can't fool you, any of you. It simply isn't fair to you or me. The worst crime I can think of would be to rip off people by faking it and pretending as if I'm having 100% fun. Sometimes I feel as if I should have a punch-in time clock before I walk out on stage. I've tried everything within my power to appreciate it. And I do, believe me, I do, but it's not enough. I appreciate the fact that I and we have affected and entertained a lot of people. It must be one of those narcissists who only appreciate things when they're gone. I need to be slightly numb in order to regain the enthusiasms I once had as a child. I'm too sensitive. I have a goddess of a wife who sweats ambition and empathy, and a daughter who reminds me too much of what I used to be, full of love and joy, kissing every person she meets because everyone is good and will do her no harm. And that terrifies me to the point where I can barely function. I can't stand the thought of Frances, his daughter, becoming the miserable, self-destructive rocker that I've become. I have it good, very good, and I'm grateful. But since the age of 7, I've become hateful toward all humans in general, only because it seems so easy for people to get along that have empathy, only because I love and feel sorry for people too much, I guess. Thank you from the pit of my burning, nauseous stomach for your letters and concern during the past years. I'm too much an erratic, moody baby. I don't have the passion anymore. And so remember, it's better to burn out than to fade away. Peace, love, empathy. Kurt. Frances and Courtney, wife and daughter. I'll be at your altar. Please keep going, Courtney, for Frances, for her life, which will be so much happier without me. In capital letters, I love you, exclamation point. I love you, exclamation point. I love you. You know, Kurt was the lead singer of a band, but he's more than that. Kurt is an illustration in this sermon today, but he's more than that. What Kurt needs to know, and therefore everyone needs to know, is that he's worth it. That he's a person. First and foremost, a person. This series is about God saying to people, you're worth it, I am with you, you're a seed, let's grow. You saw it in there. I don't know if Kurt had really any influence with the church, but he said in there, I don't ever feel 100% ready for whatever this is. And that's a thing over here. You were complete, you were 100%, and then we just crashed, and so we just like this uphill climb to get there. And there's a lot of work that even if you're like, well, Jesus fixed it, so I'm good 100%, it doesn't change the fact that some days you don't feel 100%. And so what I found is an easier way to talk about this is to say, we're on our way to growing huge, stable roots in giant leafy branches that weather all the storms and that remind people, indeed, that you're worth it. That's the part about Kurt's story that I think is worth sharing, is that he's a person before anything else. And so I think about, what's the church? Is it chairs? Is it people? Is it a field that was once here? What is it? And a guy in our church said this: what if the church, this is the way we do it, these postmodern young millennial people, we just ask questions, we don't actually give an answer. What is the church? And he said, well, what if the church became that which lets people be known as people again? What if the church became the thing that lets people be known as people again? We sang it in the second song today. You remind me of who I am. And who are you? It's a story about potential. It's about saying you're worth it. You're worth it. We as the church, we Crossroads Church builds a building, starts a youth program, does food giveaway, shovels the parking lot, hands out checks, gives gift cards. What don't you do? You do it for one reason, and it's to remind people that God is saying you're worth it. I hope in week 37, I'm either here or I get to see that we say that Jesus is saying this. Hey, Jesus on the cross, you're worth it. You're absolutely worth it. You don't have to, any atonement theory will work for you. You can still believe that Jesus is saying you're worth it. So church is at least this. It's a place that reminds people that they're people again. How do you know God is real? I can feel it in my bones, he said. So here's the challenge. We've talked about what the story is. We've talked about what a church is. We've talked about what God is doing in the story and tell people they're worth it. And now you go, well, okay, what is the church though, Jeremiah? It's showing people, it's still a question. So you are the church. Let me tell you the craziest part about this story. It's not that there are glowing people. It's not that there are fruit with a heartbeat. It's not that snakes are coming out of snakes. It's not even that something was created out of nothing. Let me tell you what I think is the craziest part about this story, is that God says, you're worth it, and then says, now, here's how they're going to know here's how everyone else is going to know they're worth it. This is how everyone's going to know that I am with you. You're going to tell them. That's insane. It's on you, it's on me to say, you're worth it. It's the time for resolutions, right? Some people like them, some people don't. I've never really done one very well, but I'm working on one thing. It's called patience. And so my way of trying to be more patient this year is to knit. And I haven't started yet, and I don't even know if I will, but my goal is to knit something and then wear it. So I'm trying to be more patient. What are you trying to be this year? What are you trying to be? I hope, and I urge you as you start this new story, even if you just come back on Sundays for an hour, you can bring your popcorn, Paul said so, and watch and listen. What are you trying to be? I hope that you'll plug into this story where God says, you're worth it. I'm with you and you're worth it. Go and tell everyone else. Let's pray. God, we thank you for this time and this place. We thank you for the people it took to create a spot where we can feel safe and know that you are here with us. We hope and ask that you will always remind us of this. We hope that you will surround us with people who love us and care for us, remind us of our worth. We pray all this in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.